Hi, I'm Nick Cosentino, and I'm a Principal Software Engineering Manager at Microsoft. In this video, we're going to look at hooking up MySQL in Azure to our Blazor blog engine. If you're new to this series, if you want to get started with the first video, I'll link it right up here. That's going to introduce you to this Blazor blog engine from Steven Giesel. Personally, for me, I was migrating away from WordPress. I was sick and tired of it, and I figured Blazor would be an awesome fit, and Steven had a perfect solution for me. If that sounds interesting, just a reminder to subscribe to the channel and check out that pinned comment for my courses on Dome Train. But with that said, let's jump over to Visual Studio and see what we're going to get started with. Okay, so I have the app settings JSON file pulled up here, and we can see on line 24 and 25, we have the persistence provider and then the connection string. Now, at the time of recording this video, and this might be different in the future, depending on when you're watching this, these are the default options that Steven's provided with his Blazor blog engine. So we have a SQLite database, and it's going to be in memory. This way you can literally just press play when you get this repository cloned down, and you should be able to run locally with a Blazor blog engine. But what we're going to do is switch this over to be a MySQL instance, and we're going to have a connection string that points over to Azure. So in my current setup, which I can run locally, it's going to even point at my production database. With all of that out of the way, I just wanted to show you where we're going to be tweaking this stuff. We're going to jump over to the Azure portal and get set up with a new database. All right, so once you're in your Azure portal, so yes, you will need an Azure subscription and an account created. What you're going to want to do is search for MySQL up at the top here. So you can see if I go type MySQL even, I can see Azure database for MySQL servers. So when I click on that, I can go create a new one, and then it wants us to pick between a flexible server or a WordPress and MySQL flexible server. So of course, we're not going with the WordPress option, but if you go into advanced create, you can see that there's a bit of a wizard to walk through. I already have one set up, but I'm just going to show you some of the options so you can see what to tweak and tune, but I'm not going to prescribe what you need. You will need to consider what you need for your own situations, but we'll walk through these options, and that way you can at least be familiar with some of the things that I was doing. To start things off, you're going to want to pick your subscription. So I have a dedicated one for my dev leader resources, and then a resource group from within that. So you'll pick one. So I would go RG dev leader for mine. You can see that it's already starting to calculate some of the costs for you, right? So yes, for a lot of this stuff, there is going to be a cost associated with it. You can find other hosting platforms if you don't want to use Azure. I know that on AWS, when I was using AWS before, there's potentially some other options that might be cheaper to start with. You could look outside of both Azure and AWS. There's plenty of options available online that's sort of outside of the scope of this. This is purely for going through Azure. So next up, we'll go give our server a name here. So you could call it like TestDB or whatever you want to name it for your actual setup. And then it says that the server name must be available as well. So you're going to have to figure out what is going to work for you. You can pick a region. For me, I am located in the US. I think most of my viewer base is also located in the US. Technically, I'm on the West Coast, but for me, I just figured in the central US would be a good option. But consider where your resources are and how you want this to work. And then a MySQL version. So 8 is the latest one at the time of recording this video. Again, if you're in the future watching this video, maybe they have different versions available. But I personally would just want to pick the latest unless there was some other strong reason for not doing that. Before we move on, this is just a quick reminder that I do have a course on C# refactoring available on Dome Train. Refactoring is one of the most critical skills that you can learn as a software engineer, and this helps you continue to build upon applications that already exist, making sure that they can scale and have extensibility. I walk you through a bunch of various techniques and give you some examples that we walk through together to see how we can apply these techniques to refactor the code. Check out the pinned comment and the links in the description to get this course. Now back to the video. Now, for the workload type, again, this is really going to depend on your needs. Like for me, like having for development or hobby projects, my blog doesn't get like millions of requests or visitors per day, right? So I don't really need a lot. For small to medium-sized databases, if you look at the cost already, right? So going from development or hobby projects from like $20 a month, this is in Canadian, by the way. My account, I am in the US, but my account was created when I was still in Canada. So I should have mentioned that that is in Canadian dollars, but going from development up to small medium size, it's basically what was that, so like $20 to $200, so like 10x, right? It's a big difference. If you go to tier 1 business, it's already even greater. So basically, my assumption is that if you're watching this, you're probably just setting up a hobby blog, or you don't get millions of visitors or something like that. So this is probably a great option for you. Yes, there is a cost, right? It's going to be 22 bucks Canadian at this point right here. In a lot of cloud computing, there's going to be costs, but I'm not here again to go tell you the most optimal for your needs. This is just in the Azure portal. Availability zone, I just put no preference when I was setting this up because I don't have a need to specify that. High availability is interesting, right? I think if we go to check this off, you can see that the cost has gone up. And then this is giving you a warning here, right? High availability is not supported with the compute tier choice. So you're going to have to go up in the compute tier. So I think if we went to small or medium size and then did high availability, it works. But again, it's going to add some additional cost. So you can see high availability is $244.54. If we scroll down, that's not, by the way, when you see that cost, that's not just like showing you some additional, it's like a net new charge on top. So if you notice, I go to the estimated total. For high availability, it's a lot of money. So again, I'm just showing you this. It's probably not something you need if you're watching this tutorial, but just so that you can see what's there. So again, I'm going to go back to development or hobby projects. Authentication method, this is for you to decide. I ended up going with MySQL authentication only. So we can go ahead and get a username and password set up. So you could type administrator. Can I just get away with something like this for now? Put a password in there, right? Okay, so we would get set up with these basic settings, and then we want to go over to the next page here. So this is something that I think is important, especially when you're trying to test things out. But when we talk about network connectivity, if you're running all of your stuff in Azure, you can get away with private access. But I think if you're trying to test things out and you're trying to look at what's connect from your development machine, especially if you're watching this and trying to run what I'm going to be doing locally, you will want public access. You're going to need to provide your own IP address there. So you can see we can allow public access to this resource through the internet using a public IP address. And if we scroll down a little bit here, so what you'd want to do is add your own IP address in here. So you can go to whatsmyip.com, and I think right here, even it should list your current IP address. Mine will be blocked out. And then that way, again, for development purposes and testing things out, you can connect from your own machine to this resource. That means you can run the Blazor blog engine locally to try it out and be pointing at your production database. If we go over to the security tab, there's data encryption. For me, I just left mine as default. I didn't change any settings here, not something I needed to do. We could jump over to tags. I generally don't do much with the tags on any of the services that I'm using in Azure, just not at the scale where that's necessary for me. And then review and create, we can go see all of the settings before we press go on this, right? So just to have a quick check, I have my subscription and my resource group. I gave it a name. We can see my admin login name. Where I picked it to run, I didn't pick an availability zone. I just said no preference. High availability is off. It's not available in this basic tier anyway. We picked the latest MySQL version. There's a backup retention period in 7 days. So I believe by default, because mine is currently doing this, once a day there's a backup, and it keeps a backup for 7 days. So this is by default as far as I know. So just a heads up, something that you might want to go double check once you've created your resource. I don't have accelerated logs on. Storage auto growth is turned on, so something to be mindful of. I have had in the past this setting cause me a bit of a headache, and I've had to reach out to Azure support, but with my blog, this has not been the case. It's a very small footprint anyway. And then I do not have geo redundancy turned on as well. If we scroll down to the networking part, connectivity, public access, yes, especially for debugging. If you have everything set up and you're ready to go production-wise, you can go back to just being private within Azure, because if you don't need to connect from the outside and you're only using Azure resources, you should be good to go. So otherwise, I think we're set up here, and then we would go ahead and press the create button. So I have a validation failed up at the top here, so I'd have to go correct something. So if I go back to the basics, you can see that this server name was not available. So maybe if I pick something else here that works, I go to review and create once again, and now it's okay. So there's no validation errors. Again, we can see our total cost down here. So if you're comfortable with that, you want to get rocking and rolling, you can go ahead and press create. Now, I already have a database made. I'm not going to go create another one. because I don't want to forget to go delete it and have some extra charge that I don't need to pay for. So with that said, I'm going to jump over to my resource, and then we can see how we can leverage this in the .NET solution. Okay, so with our database created, I've just gone over to the overview tab here. I scroll down a little bit, you can see that mine's been running here. Everything looks all and well. There are going to be some things you can check out up at the top here, right? So you can see your configuration, your version. So this is all the stuff that you've already set up. So it's just, if you're curious what the things are, you can see that they're listed up at the top there. But this is a good spot if you're ever curious and you want to get a high-level overview of what's going on. You can check out this page. It's just the overview tab. If we go back over to the networking tab, again, if you did forget to set up your own IP address to be able to access this stuff, to make sure that you can go debug it, you can go ahead and set that up in the firewall rules down here. So give it a name. You can see that I have Lightsail here. This is still from when I needed to be able to export my WordPress information from Amazon Lightsail. I needed to be able to have connectivity from there over to this database. And then I have my home set up here. I live in Linwood, so I have my home IP set up so that I can go debug this and connect from my house to this resource. So again, if you forgot to set that up, you can go over to the networking tab, make sure public access is on, and then you can go ahead and configure a firewall rule for your own IP. If we go down to databases, we'll have a quick check here. You can see that mine looks a little bit different than yours probably does. I called my database in here production, right? So you can call it whatever you want. That's when we configured it in the creation process. I also have a second one here because, as I mentioned, I was migrating from WordPress in Amazon Lightsail. So I just wanted to make sure that I could clone all of the tables over in a database on this server. So that's the Bitnami WordPress one. So I have a snapshot of everything in my old database before I got set up here. So you probably will not have this. That's okay. And then this one that says production for me is whatever you named your database. Now what we're going to do is try to get the connection string from here and put it into our application. So if I go over to connect, you can see that I have my connection details here. If you want to use something like MySQL Workbench, if I go to expand this, you can see that it has the steps to go configure this, right? So in your case, you're going to have a different host name. Maybe if you've already changed your port or your username, right? So this information will be different for you, but if you want to connect through MySQL Workbench, you can go ahead and do that locally. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's just a tool that you can run locally, and then you can have a user interface to go run queries, examine your database and stuff like that. I personally use that for all of my own development even, so super handy tool if you're working with MySQL. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to look at, and this is what we're going to be leveraging, is that if you want to make sure we have a connection string to use with Blazor, this is where you want to expand the connect from your app part, and then we can go make sure that we pick the ADO.NET one. So right up here, you can see that we get this connection string, so we can go ahead and copy that. What you're going to want to do is replace that inside the text that we have back in Visual Studio. So jumping back over to Visual Studio, you'll want to put this to MySQL here, and the title case part is important. It's currently not set up to be case insensitive in the Blazor blog engine. By the time you're watching this, that might be different, but at the time of recording this, it needs to be this casing that you see here. Now, with your clipboard, you're going to want to paste over that connection string. It's going to format a little bit wonky, but just let's hold out for 1 sec. You can see that when I pasted it, it put it across multiple lines. If I just press undo once, what we'll see is that this needs to be inside of quotes. I'm going to remove the quotes on all of this stuff here. You can probably escape them, I believe. So if you put slash like that, it should probably work if you wanted to do it this way. So maybe we can try that out. Slash, right, the port. You could go escape all this stuff. That's up to you. So I will let you decide on how you want to do that, but you're going to want to make sure that this doesn't have any weird formatting issues, okay? So I'm going to remove the quotes so you can see that as well. There's no spaces in any of these settings, so I don't need that. My username does not have spaces, and then my password also does not have spaces. So you can go ahead and put that into here. And then for me, my database name was production. This is going to be whatever you had. And then the SSL mode. I don't have a path for a certificate, so This is what mine mostly looks like. Then of course we get rid of that semicolon at the end there, and essentially you should have your information put in here. Now, the thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is that this is, if you look on my setup, I have an app settings development.json in the Solution Explorer. You don't want to commit this connection string to your repository, because if you have your password in there, that's not what you want. You don't want to have your secrets put into an app settings JSON file. When you go to deploy this in Azure, and we'll look at this in a follow-up video, we will configure these settings in the Azure portal, so when it's deployed, you have the correct settings. Again, this is just to get you set up and running locally. But if you did this properly, and all you had to change was your persistence provider and your connection string, at this point we should be able to press play. So if I go run this now, and we pull up the console window here, we can see that it is running on port 5001 for HTTPS. We should be able to go copy that. If I go open it up in a browser here, we should see, well, yours is going to look different than mine, of course, but we should see that you are able to load this. There should not be errors coming up. If you're having exceptions, you're going to want to make sure that you go back and check your settings. Do remember the casing needs to be a capital M, lowercase y, capital S, and then QL are lowercase as well. That really matters at the time of recording this. From there, you should be able to go to your admin, log in if you're in debug. For me, I'm already logged in, but you should be able to create a new blog post, change things up here, save it, and it will go to your database in the cloud. So to wrap things up, we looked at getting a MySQL database set up in Azure. We looked at being able to connect locally to it. And then from there, you should be able to go run, create blog posts, or even create shortcodes and other things that will get saved into your database. If you thought that was useful, remember to subscribe to the channel, and you can check out this video next when it's ready to continue on with this tutorial.